Hey, welcome back to my channel. Today, we'll be discussing The Words in Your Snare by Chepali. Before we get started, there will be spoilers, so if you don't want me spoiling this manhwa, go ahead and click off now. No worries, I'll catch you next time. For those of you left behind, let's go over some content warnings and buckle in because this is a long list. There may be references to violence, blood, gang activity, kidnapping, child abuse, implied cheating, not between the main characters, incest, drugs, drug trafficking, extortion, sexual assault, break-ins, murder, impersonating police, gossiping, death, mentions of overdose, invasion of privacy, sextortion, mentions of sex work, murder, suicide, mentions of involuntary commitment to a mental health facility, obsession, mental health issues, ableism, car accidents, xenophobia and or racism, abuse, child neglect, drug addiction, drug use, child abandonment, corruption, homomesia, mentions of chronic illnesses, attraction between a student and a teacher, and misuse of medication, as these things do appear in the manhwa. But if that's all with you, let's go and get started. Ju-in is just trying to enjoy his life. He's running a little cafe in the middle of the country, enjoying spending time with the locals. But more than anything, he enjoys the words, and that doesn't mean conversation. One of the main reasons Ju-in enjoys the conversation so much is because he can read minds. His ability is limited to physical words that spawn off people and linger around where they hang out. In the city, Ju-in was often bombarded with negative and positive thoughts alike. In the rural areas, Ju-in sees more positive words than any other kind, and there are fewer, making his life much more peaceful. However, that peace is disrupted when a strange bag of coffee beans appears at his cafe. Not long after, a group of police officers and a handsome man in a suit come looking for that bag of coffee. It's an odd scenario for a random bag of coffee, but nothing is stranger than the man who, for whatever reason, doesn't give off any words at all. Ju-in has never encountered anyone whose thoughts he couldn't see, but no matter how much he looks, he can't see any of his thoughts. Things only get stranger as the man returns time and time again, lingering around Ju-in for a reason he can't even fathom. The man then makes a request, one that Ju-in has no intention of complying with. This stranger, Mukya, wants to date Ju-in. Thankfully, Mukya works hours away in the city, so Ju-in plans to let their odd relationship fade away. But then a young man with a knife drops by looking for drugs. Ju-in can only assume that the random bag of coffee beans was actually a bag of drugs, and after subduing the young man, Ju-in has no choice but to go back to the city. He ends up right back where he started, working alongside the police to read possible criminals' minds. Unlike before though, Mukya is there too. As Ju-in spends more and more time in the city with the gangster Mukya wooing him, Ju-in feels himself softening up to the mystery man. But love can't cover up the dark feelings and thoughts lurking around the city Ju-in has left behind. Iju's art is super recognizable, which is both good and bad. It's good in that you know what great things to expect when you see it, but it's bad in that I know what bad things to expect too. Just like with Love Shuttle, it has that clean outline and shading of the faces with super smudgy shading everywhere else. The body proportions are also all over the place. The sex scenes are painfully stiff too, resembling dolls being posed rather than people actually doing anything. I won't say it's all bad. Their close-ups are typically killer, and some moments are truly stunning. There's a panel of Eugene in the side story without the weird smudgy body, which just makes me wonder why they use it when it looks so good without it. However, the greatest travesty of all is the use of 3D stock models. The fruit scene is painful. If you know, you know. On the story front, it's all over the place. I love the idea of the segmented words rather than Ju-in being able to read minds fully. I think this method of mind reading makes so much more sense, since I'm sure human thought is fragmented into words and phrases when we're not concentrated. I especially like that the words seem tangible and that we can leave them around like our thoughts have energy and ambiance that can alter the space we occupy. That's such an amazing concept, and I love that Ju-in collects nice and pretty words. I also adore that he often messes with the words without realizing how he appears to others. It gives him a ton of believable character and provides additional reasons why he may be perceived negatively or why people might avoid him. It would also lend itself to why he wants to avoid others, though that's much more multi-layered as we learn through the narrative. However, as much as I like that concept, it's overshadowed by the disjointed and seemingly rushed story. I've read some whirlwind romances where the couple is having sex within the first couple of panels. Usually that's predicated on explaining why, like they were on the hunt for a casual hookup or something similar. In this case, we're completely unaware of why Mukya suddenly falls in love with Juin. It also makes no sense how Juin initially tries to avoid Mukya's affections only to move straight to Seoul. I get him wanting to experience a relationship with someone whose mind he can't read, but closing his cafe and moving is just so out of the realm of understanding to me. The reason for Mukya's immediate love for Juin is later explained in the epilogue. Still, while I do like the explanation, I wish it had been integrated into the main story somewhere, as I think it would have remedied some of that rushed feel. Regardless, the story is painfully disjointed with broken crime and mystery story tethered together with smut and piles of abuse. Finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up another weird incest addition. Just like with Love Shuttle, we have a brother who's obsessed and in love with another brother. Aiju didn't write this, but you could have fooled me with this addition. It's so similar to Love Shuttle that it almost feels like a copy-paste. Ju-Yul is Juin's younger brother, and Ju-Yul, in his desperate obsession, tries to rape Juin, but only succeeds in sexually assaulting him, though that isn't much better. I understand Ju-Yul and Juin are meant to mirror their father's and uncle's relationship, which also consisted of implied romantic and obsessive feelings that were never dealt with. Juin and Ju-Yul are supposed to right the wrongs of the previous generation, but even knowing all of this, I didn't hate it any less. Both mentions of obsessive incest felt completely random and out of place, and because of that, it just felt icky. The discussion of why their father beat them is also summed up in a throwaway line of, quote, "It doesn't matter," end quote, which sucks out all of the importance of all the abuse and trauma we're subjected to throughout the series. It makes it seem like it's just abuse for the sake of abuse, as the writer hadn't determined why their father did all that to them when he could see the words too. If he was abusing them for the sake of rage, it doesn't make sense why he would give Juin antipsychotics. Maybe it's the adaptation of the story that just isn't as thorough as it should be, but either way, it feels terribly disjointed with dark elements that make no sense narratively. I love dark narratives as much as the next person, but I need some purpose for it. With all that being said, I have to admit it, I hated this. Rereading it for this review was painful, but I did all the same. The story was all over the place, the art isn't all that great, and it definitely doesn't align with my preferences. This is as smutty as they come, and while I didn't mention this in the main review, the addition of beads in Mukya's penis was fun. But all the smut and body mods in the world wouldn't have made me enjoy this. I'm not one to police anyone's preferences for ethics or morality, but I do think it's important to share these things with those who don't enjoy them, and also those who do. So, because of the violent incest and the needless abuse, I can't recommend this one. So, have you read the words in your snare? If so, what do you think? Do you agree with my assessment? Do you not? Let me know and comment below. Otherwise, I'll catch you next time. Bye!